Hey, what is up guys, Cast here with another video. Now today we're going to be going over the top 5 AEG upgrade platforms. Now this is going to be full airsoft guns. I'm not talking about gearboxes or lower receivers or anything separate like that. We're talking about an airsoft gun you can go out and buy today and have an upgrade platform for the future. Now I think that's one of the best ways to get into airsoft teching. Well, you can buy a boneyard gun and start learning the internals on that. Having a base gun that you can basically do whatever you want with is a really great place to be in. So this is going to be a top 5 list on the top 5 guns I think on the market right now you should get personally if you want to upgrade your gun and change it in the future. Now the things we're going to go over for this list are going to be 6 main points. First off, we're going to look at stock parts quality. And by this I mean the quality of the internals that you're going to get out of the box. Some guns, they have a lot of potential, but there's a lot of different little things that need to be changed. Some guns have a lot of things already pre-upgraded from the factory that you can leave in your gun and upgrade it for, like, let's say a DSG or a high FPS DMR setup. And with those stock components, you're still going to be able to perform at a very high level. So stock parts quality can save you money, and we're going to be looking at that for this top 5 list. Alright, the next thing we're going to be looking at is upgrade compatibility for your airsoft gun. All guns are not created equally. By that I mean not all airsoft guns are at the TM spec that we all adhere to on the aftermarket. By that I mean, let's say you wanted to put like a Gate Titan trigger system in your gun, but you have an M14. Well, that is a very complex proprietary trigger system, so you're really out of luck there with the amount of MOSFET systems and fire control units you can put into your gun. So in the same vein, we're going to be looking at the guns that for the most part are like a clean slate. You can take any airsoft upgrade part on the market, throw it in, and you don't have to machine anything in the gearbox or on the parts to get it to all fit and function properly. The next thing we're going to be looking at is ease of assembly and disassembly of the airsoft gun. You really want to have a gun that's very easy and streamlined to take apart and put back together. It really saves you time and energy and streamlines the entire process of upgrading a gun. Just not having to worry about keeping up with small screws and springs, just to have the gun function in the end. We are also going to be looking at durability of the gearbox in the gun, making sure the gearbox can handle whatever we throw at it, whether it's a high performance, high speed gun or a high FPS build, whatever we want, a sustained fire airsoft gun. The gearbox will be able to function and perform as it should. We're also going to be looking at external growth capability. This means that we can install a lot of different external parts, which is actually a very important part of airsoft. Be able to dress up the gun with different rails and different scopes and different stocks, pistol grips, handguards, whatever you want on the gun. And the gun will be able to grow, and we don't have to upgrade a lot of like the receivers or any of the main components of the gun, just to have it function and be durable and perform as time goes on. And finally, we'll be looking at the value of the gun itself, how much we have to pay for this gun up front, and just to see how it performs out of the box as well, to see if our initial investment will allow us to grow in airsoft. Now, this top 5 list is not in any particular order. All of these guns on this list fit the categories we went over earlier, the best out of all other guns on the market, and I do realize that anyone can take any gun they want on the airsoft market and upgrade it to be whatever they want, as anything is possible in airsoft. But the one thing I would say is that not all techs in this hobby have either the skill set or the proper tools to be able to do this custom work. So again, these guns on this list, they just fit the categories the best and are the easiest to upgrade out of all other guns on the market. Number 5 on this list is the Cyma AK platform. The main reason I'm picking the Cyma platform is for the version 3 gearbox, which in my opinion is the best designed airsoft gearbox on the market. It has basically the exact same, if not a little bit smaller, of aftermarket compared to the version 2 gearbox. It has a lot of internal parts that are interchangeable with the version 2 gearbox, as far as sometimes the air nozzle, sometimes the cylinder head, and the gear set are interchangeable between the two. Also, the way the gearbox is designed, it can handle a lot more stress without having to radius the front of the gearbox. A lot of techs will recommend that you, for a version 2 gearbox, that you radius the front of it where the cylinder head sits, because this is a very weak point in the gearbox where it can develop hairline fractures if you're running a high stress build on your version 2 gearbox. With the version 3 gearbox, there's a lot more metal material in the front end, meaning that radiusing really isn't a thing you have to do. Another benefit of the version 3 gearbox is that it has a motor cage. Compared to the version 2 gearbox that doesn't have one, this means that your motor will sit in the gearbox the exact same. It makes it a little bit easier to shim your beveled pinion meshing, and it won't be determined by the pistol grip you're using externally for the motor to sit in the gearbox properly. Another benefit of a version 3 gearbox is that the wires and electronic system is ran outside the gearbox, which means you don't have to worry about wires getting frayed or torn up by the moving parts on the inside of the gearbox, which can be an issue for the version 2 platform. Now, specifically for the internals on the Cyma gearbox, it comes with steel bushings out of the box. The 4 series, which is the latest series of the Cyma AKs being built today, they come with full metal hop-up chambers and full metal spring guides, which means you don't have to upgrade those parts out of the box. I've personally used the hop-up chambers in my guns. I've used the steel bushings in my guns and the spring guides in my guns, and they all function perfectly fine. I haven't had any issues with any of them breaking or causing any issues in the gun. And those are for high performing guns that either have a high rate of fire or higher FPS or whatever it is. Also, a good part about the Cyma platform is their external quality. Now, this is more for the 4 series, but with the 4 series you're getting a VFC design, which means that you can use real steel external parts. This basically allows you to dress up your AK as much as you would be able to, let's say, on an ENL platform, or LCT platform that also take real steel externals. Essentially, any rail system you want or stock that you want on the market will be able to fit on these Cyma 4 series AKs without any issues. This means that you can, buy an entry-level gun for under $200, and then when you have more money to be able to dress it up, maybe you want a key mod rail or a Zenit Co furniture or retractable style stock, you can put this on your gun without any issues and dress it up just as nice as the more premium line of AKs on the market. The 4 series has the VFC design stamped steel receivers, and stamped steel just means that they have better external quality than the 3 series AKs. My personal AK is a CM031D, which is a 3 series Airsoft gun. It's the AK-105 replica. Mine did not come with a metal hop-up chamber or the metal spring guide, which were 2 parts I had to upgrade out of the box when I finally upgraded my gun. But other than that, the external quality was still full metal, still TM design, which meant that I could not use real steel externals. However, I was still able to upgrade it with pretty nice externals. As you can see in the picture, I have a full metal upper handguard, a tri-rail on the bottom handguard, a synthetic folding stock on the back, and a stubby foregrip on the front and a saw style grip on the back. It's a pretty nice looking gun, but again, you have more upgradability with the 4 series of Cyma AKs. And I'll also do a quick shout out to the ENL line of AKs and the LCT line of AKs just because of their external quality. I would say LCT is like in between ENL and Cyma, just a step below ENL quality AKs, because ENL AKs are pretty much real steel AKs with AEG internals, because again, they're just rock solid and they're not going to break. If you can break an ENL AK, then you're really going to break any other gun you touch on the airsoft market. That's just how durable they are. Internal quality, they have, I believe, full steel pistons, they have a high torque motor out of the box, and they also have a quick chain spring guide setup, which just means that the internal parts are just more potent out of the box for you to do upgrades to. I still pick the Cyma line because, again, for $200 you can really pick any airsoft AK you want from Cyma and be able to upgrade it just as much as the ENL for that matter. It's just that the external quality won't be as high compared to the ENLs. But again, if you want to spend the more money on an ENL line, then that's the way to go. Now, number 4 on the list we have is the ICS M4 platform. Main reason I'm picking this is the split gearbox design. Honestly, I would say if you want to have the most modular gun on the airsoft field, and you want to use it for both indoor, outdoor, really whatever situation you're presented, the ICS M4 platform is the best #1 option that you should go for if building a custom gun. The way the split gearbox design has been carried out with ICS is just ingenious. Basically, if you don't know what it is, the standard version 2 gearbox is basically cut in half. You have the lower gearbox, which stays on the lower receiver, and you have the upper gearbox, which stays on the upper receiver. So your aeroserial components, your piston and your tappet plate are in the top, while your gear set and the motor and the wiring stays in the bottom. What this enables you to do is just remove the back body pin on the M4, just like in a normal AR-15 in the real steel market, and you can remove the upper gearbox, like you'll be able to remove the bolt carrier in a normal gun. What this allows you to do is have a very modular gun. A lot of people, including myself, have a little bit of an arsenal where we have some guns built for outdoors, some guns built for indoors, and the mix of all in between. But with ICS platform gun, if you run M4s primarily, you can really have one lower receiver and just switch out the upper gearbox and possibly the upper receiver and rail system and barrels just with the simplest of ease. What this allows you to do is have multiple guns and but one low receiver, and you really can save money having, again, multiple guns, but really in only one gun that does all the work. The ICS platform is really optimized to perform. Another great feature is that it has a spring detentioner when you either hit the forward assist on the older model guns. I believe the newer model of ICS M4s, it is whenever you switch it into the safety mode, you are able to get the gun to detention the spring. This allows you to have optimize your spring life so your spring doesn't get really weak when it's compressed all the time, like some other guns if it doesn't cycle properly. Another great thing about the ICS line is that for the most part they can fit any gear set, any trigger system you want. A little bit of modification to the low receiver might be necessary. I heard some things about a Gate Titan or a BTC Spectre MOSFET not fitting entirely the best in the lowers, but for the most part they drop in perfectly fine with little modification required to get it to work. But all gear sets and all other cylinder parts can fit into the ICS line very easily. The gearboxes are pretty strong. I really haven't heard of a lot of issues of people having with the gearboxes splitting on them or cracking. So they're very strongly built gearbox shells. One of the downsides to the gun is that I believe that the stock is a little bit different. You need to use ICS spec buffer tubes. You can't use normal style buffer tubes because of the way the split gearbox design is working. The buffer tube is usually held on a normal TM style gun. The buffer tube screw goes through the back of the spring guide. Well, to use the split chain or the split gearbox design in ICS, you cannot use this buffer tube. So you have to use ICS buffer tubes, and that means for the most part sometimes ICS stocks only. But I believe it is a mil-spec buffer tube, so you can throw on whatever stock you want, and most people use retractable stocks on their guns anyway. As for rail systems, I'm pretty sure that ICS guns can be thrown on any real steel rails. Their key mod design is really nice. They have a lot of cool looking guns out of the box, and their receivers are very strong as well. They have billet style, normal A2 style receivers, and everything in between. I like to say that ICS, I would buy one, but sometimes the guns look a little bit ugly in my opinion, but they definitely are different from your normal M4 and will allow you to stand out, which is another great feature. But yeah, the ICS line of M4s is a really nice platform to upgrade. Has everything that you want, and you can again build multiple guns with one lower receiver and have a really nice modular system. I'm actually planning to do a DSG ICS gun myself in the future. And the split gearbox will allow me to run different uppers for different FPS, allowing me to transfer from indoor and outdoor with one gun. Alright, there's a tie for number 3 on the list. This is primarily for the M4 platform. If you just want to have, the cleanest canvas in the Airsoft market to build whatever M4 you want, I'm going to recommend the GMP/VFC guns. Now, I do realize that these are made in 2 separately different factories, but I do see a lot of similarities with GMP as with VFC in the way that they design their guns and how they perform out of the box and what you can do to them in the aftermarket. Now, personally, I'm a little bit biased towards GMP. I think that GMP is a better manufacturer of guns than VFC is, but everyone has their own opinion. Now, focusing on the internals of these guns, personally, well, this is before the Avalon series of VFC guns came out, but personally, I believe that the GMP had the better internals than VFC did. And looking at VFC's older gearboxes, I think it's kind of hard to compare the two. I do believe that the quality of the gearbox shells are pretty much similar. Both of them are pretty strong out of the box, could handle quite a bit of upgrades. Stock, I do personally prefer the bushings on the VFC model, but aside from that, I would take the GMP internals every day of the week. GMP guns come wired to Deans out of the box, something that cannot be said for the VFC gearboxes. They have a full metal spring guide. I feel a better quality piston, better air seal components. And the one thing that really did it in for me for the older model VFC gearboxes at least was the self-shimming gears that they were notorious for. While they did work better than I guess some entry-level guns, it really was not the best way to go about shimming a gearbox. GMP gearboxes for the most part were shimmed properly from the factory. A little bit of wiggle room was necessary for them to be perfectly shimmed, but from the factory definitely was not bad considering they are mass producing these guns. Another testament to GMP is that for the longest time they have not changed their internal design. I think this gun came out in like the early 2010 time frame, maybe earlier than that in the 2000s. But this gearbox design has really held up to the test of time. You can still buy a GMP gun and it will perform, I would say, admirably and compete with the lines of the new KWAs, the new Crytek's, and the new Avalon series guns. Now I will say that the Avalon series gearbox is better than the current series of the GMP gearboxes. They have a MOSFET, they changed around their piston, which I think is better. I do believe they did away with the self-shimming gears. I have seen reports that the step gear still has a self-shimming system on it, but I believe the gear set's a little bit stronger, and overall it's just a nice refresh to the design. And it also has a quick change spring guide, which is a nice feature as well. One thing I will say is that the GMP i5 gearbox is coming out in the near future, so we'll have to see how that stacks up. But as of the time of this video, both guns for the most part are very nice guns to start off with. For a GMP, I would not mind using any of the stock internal parts. The stock air seal components are good, the bearings are fairly strong, the spring guide is fairly strong, and the gears are actually very nice as well. So they can handle, high power DSG builds, high power DMR builds, whatever you want to throw at them, and they'll work fine. But the same can be said for a VFC model as well. The main reason I would say that these two are number 3 is that they can basically take whatever external part available on the market for an M4, it will accept it. Both these guns are made to real steel specs, so real steel rails will fit on these guns without question. Real steel stocks will fit on this without question. Really anything you want to do externally, it will fit on a GMP or a VFC gun. These are you can make like some of the most realistic looking Mark 18 builds, the most realistic looking SPR builds, or any other AR-15 gun. You can make it as realistic as possible with a GMP or a VFC gun. So yeah, those take the number 3 spot for their external capabilities. Again, great receivers on the both of them, and they're very strong gearboxes internally. Alright, number 2 on this list, I'm going to throw out the Tokyo Marui Next Gen Recoil Shock line of guns. Now, personally, I don't have any experience with this gun. I really have not ever handled one. Well, I have shot one once. It was someone at the field had it, and I shot it in the range, but I didn't really play with it. I will say though that the recoil shotgun is just different, but it's different in the right way. For the longest time, people have wanted to get the realism of a gas blowback rifle with recoil and whatnot, and the quick trigger response and everything of that nature into an AEG platform. And for the longest time, people have tried a lot of different things and really just haven't been able to perfect it. Well, I think that as of now, the recoil shock line of guns from Tokyo Marui really is the closest thing to the most realistic yet practical AEG we have seen on the market. Now, a lot of people are going to talk about, what about the PTW or the GBLS recoil gun, or that other weird looking airsoft gun that I forget the name. I'll show a picture of it in the video. But what about those guns, you'll say? Well, just based on price, those guns just are not realistic to be bought at all. At least with a recoil shotgun, even though the base model is, again, $450, it's still within the realm of realistically being able to buy it. If you get us like a summer job, or just save up your money, or maybe a Christmas present, this could be, a gun that you start off with. It might not be the most practical gun to start off with, but it definitely can be a gun that you can get reasonably without a lot of issues. Again, I've seen people, spend more money on what I would say is lower quality guns, and price can add up to you. And again, $450, while it might seem intimidating, really isn't that much money to be asking for. Now, I don't know much about the recoil line of guns, as I said before. All I know is that they have some pretty nice internals, and the way they shoot, you cannot deny that they shoot extremely nicely. They have a line of BTC Spectre MOSFETs that you can throw in there, and I think that's probably the best way to, use these guns. They still use, for the most part, standard Airsoft motors, which is a great feature. For the most part, a lot of aftermarket companies, I believe SHS and Laylax and some other companies, make external or internal parts, for the TM recoil shotguns, and they're durable. Like, it has the Tokyo Marui stamp of approval for durability. The stock barrel hop-up system is, Tokyo Marui quality. Still has that magic fairy dust that allows the BBs to shoot out extremely far with the stock setup, so you really don't need to touch the barrel at all to get a really nice shooting gun. But yeah, they're just really cool. The recoil is really nice. They can shoot very straight, very true. The trigger response is awesome if you upgrade it. Now, again, it will cost you. These definitely are the more expensive, top tier builds that you can do, but just based on what I've seen and like what you can do with these guns and the cap of performance they have, they can outshoot a lot of different guns, and for the realism you get, I think that's very attractive to a lot of airsoft players on the market. Also, you can use the cutoff system where the gun won't shoot it when you have the certain mags that they use. The gun will stop shooting once you run out of ammo, which is pretty cool. Yeah, it's pretty much, I would say, the closest thing to a realistic AEG that's still in the realm of real, like, not being crazy expensive to get into. Not everyone wants to spend like $2,000 on a PTW or, put a bunch of money into a gas pullback rifle and still not be the most practical gun on the field. And then the GBLS and other guns are, kind of, proprietary in their own way, and there's not a lot of upgrade parts for them. But the TM next gen is just perfect. It fits in that right in realistic price point for the most part, but also very high level performance and realism on the field. So yeah, the Tokyo Marui next gen line of guns gets the number 2 spot. Alright, before we get to the number 1 spot, I'm going to give out a quick shout out to the honorable mentions on this list. Now, the honorable mention number 1 is Crytek, obviously. Now, the main reason I didn't pick Crytek was because of the extra reinforcement in the gearbox that can make it problematic to use upgrade parts. I've seen on the forums and online a lot that on the inside of the gearbox, primarily around the trigger housing area, there's a lot of reinforced metal that needs to either be shaved down if you want to use like a gate tighten, or shaving down in other parts of the gearbox just to be able to have aftermarket parts fit if you want to upgrade the gearbox. That's the main reason why I said not to get a Crytek, because it's going to require machine work that not every starting tech would be able to get their hands on. However, they are very robust gearboxes. They perform very well. They really have set basically the new standard for what Airsoft Premier line Airsoft gun should perform like. The next honorable mention, again, this is not in any particular order, is KWA. Now, a lot of the KWA guns are really proprietary to themselves, but they can take upgrade parts very easily, and their gearboxes are very, very strong. I think compared to the Crytek gearbox, the 2GX gearbox, and the new 2.5 and 3 gearbox might be a little bit stronger. They're probably around the same because those gearboxes are really reinforced. They're proprietary to themselves, where you can't really drop the gearbox into any other gun that you want, but if you buy KWA, you can guarantee yourself that you'll have a very easy upgrade path. The gearbox is going to last you a long period of time. They have a lot of good stock components that you'll be able to use and carry over into whatever build you want to do on it. Alright guys, so for my number 1 spot, again, no particular order, but this one has a special place in my heart, the EFCS line of Ares guns. Now, I'm not just talking about the Ares Amoeba line, I'm talking about all of them. The G36, released by Elite Force, the CTAR released by Elite Force, the EMG Hellbreaker line, and the Ares Amoeba line, and the VZ58. This also has the similar internals. Basically what makes this so good is that it has the best out-of-the-box MOSFET system on the market, at least in my opinion. Now, it's held this record for at least a year or two at this point. People just didn't really notice or take notice of it, in my opinion. Now, obviously, MOSFETs have become a standard in Airsoft. A lot more companies are releasing MOSFETs out of the box, but for a long time, no one released a MOSFET that the techs would keep
in their guns for high performance builds. Most people would drop in a BTC Spectre, or now the Gate Titan is basically makes, you know, hair trigger mods and active braking, all that other kind of stuff, like drop dead simple. They just drop those into any gun they have, and you have an instant killing machine. With the EFCS gun, you have the MOSFET you need that can rival the performance of the Gate Titan, dead serious with that, out of the box. Now, the reason I suggest this one is, again, because of the MOSFET, but also because you can buy a drop-in gearbox system, which I did. If you don't know about the P-Boys M4 project, it was basically a $65 D-Boys M4 that I got from Airsoft Megastore, full plastic, worse quality than Lancer Tactical of 2012, mind you. And the gearbox was legit machined incorrectly. The gears would sit sideways if it was full auto automatic only. It was a nightmare to work on. So I, instead of, you know, buying all the different upgrade parts and experimenting with the gearbox shell, I decided I'd save the money and just buy a drop-in system. I had already had the gear set, I had the air seal components, the motor, and all that other kind of stuff, so I went ahead and just bought the gearbox. And with that, I got the MOSFET system basically in a bundle for 90 bucks. Now, if you're going to do something similar to this for like other performance, you would buy a Lonex gearbox shell for 50 bucks, and then you have to buy a Gate Titan on top of that for $150, $160. So you're looking at a $200 investment versus half the price for similar performance. Now again, the Gate Titan has way more flexibility, way more options for you for programmability, but just for bare bones, you know, performance, hand to hand, when you're comparing them to each other, the Ares Amoeba can keep up with the trigger response. It can keep up with the cycling rate. It can keep up with, you know, the everything that the Gate Titan can. It just doesn't have all the different programmable features for burst and whatnot. Now it does. You can program it for burst. You can do full auto and semi and burst and auto, and just semi only. You have to buy the programmer unit, which is 60 bucks investment, which I think is kind of expensive, but that's besides the point. Essentially, it was the most economic way for me to get great performance out of my gun. I call it the poor man's PW. I'll let you guys do the decision on that by listening to this audio clip of my gun shooting. Now, as you can tell, that is a very nice trigger response. Now, my personal build, I basically overhauled all the internals. The only parts I'm using from the actual gearbox itself is the cylinder head, the piston head, and the tabbet plate. And then I believe I'm using the same anti-reversal latch and whatnot. But everything else is brand spanking new. Prometheus 16:1 gears or high-speed gears, I'm not sure the ratio on those. SHS steel tooth piston, because the stock one broke. I was planning on using that one, but it was machined improperly, and it had a big seam in it and just split on me. Again, the QC processing on Ares isn't the best, but definitely not the worst, and I think they're getting better over time. So who knows when this gearbox was built and what batch it was released in. But back to the parts, you know, the stock spring I believe I'm using, either that or M115 spring by ASG, can't remember. A SHS, an Element O-ring air nozzle, and a custom-made Franken-Torque high torque motor. 30K, Crytek 30K armature and can with JG Neo magnets, if you're wondering what it is. But that's besides the point. I basically overhauled the internal parts. But the cool part is that people take this gun, you know, they take their stock Ares Amoeba Honey Badgers, do this magnet mod with completely stock internals, no other upgrade parts bought except maybe, you know, the magnet itself. But you don't even have to, you can just drill out the magnet and put it somewhere else on the sector gear. And they just run it, and then you have similar performance to this. It's insane. So it is a poor man's PTW in my opinion. You can buy drop-in gearboxes for it. They have a wide variety of different gun styles for any type of person. The price ranges down for entry levels. You know, you can get your Ares EFCS gearbox performance in like the pistol guns for under $200, all the way ranging up to the $400 price point on the EMG rifles. You have more exotic flavor like the Tavor, the G36, the VZ58, and I think Ares even has a semi-automatic sniper or a DMR that they released with these internals. But you guys get the point. It's a very nice system, very easy to upgrade, and very, I'd say the best bang for your buck right now compared to the competition. So yeah, the Ares Amoeba EFCS gearbox and the Ares Amoeba EFCS series entirely takes the #1 spot on my list. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Again, this is a little bit of a longer video and different from whatever everything else I've posted. But I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll catch you in the next one.